Chapter 24. Revenge in Just a Day. Long Chen had originally just been drinking alcohol calmly, but now his face turned cold and blue veins popped out on his hands. That voice was very familiar to Long Chen. The familiarity caused Long Chen's killing intent to explode out, and the strangeness was noticed by everyone. "Brother Long, what's going on?" asked Fatty Yu. Seeing him in his murderous state, he immediately woke up from his tipsy state. "Don't worry about it. When that person comes up, just act really annoying and keep on focus on celebrating with Shifeng. Put on a show of it," said Long Chen. Everyone realized that Long Chen was wanting to make a disturbance. Currently, they all had the support of their families, and were told to form good relations with Long Chen as best they could. How could they let such a good opportunity go? "Brother Long, just watch." Xuanhuan patted his chest confidently. The footsteps continued getting closer. A man in his 20s, wearing a strange hat and long eyebrows, entered the room. Long Chen didn't reveal his face, and also told Wild not to either. The two of them had their backs facing that person. After that person came up, a bitter-faced man also came up behind him. He appeared to be the restaurant's shopkeeper. "Get them all out. Otherwise, I'll blame you." That arrogant man didn't even place Long Chen's group within his arrogant eyes. Obviously, he felt that personally shooing them would reduce his status, so he had the shopkeeper do it. "Oh my, have you guys noticed there's a phallus growing out of his head?" Xuanhuan said quietly to Fatty Yu. Although it was said quietly, it wasn't a whisper. Anyone there could completely hear it. Long Chen smiled. The strange hat on that man's head did have a long protuberance at the front of it. At first, he hadn't noticed, but once Xuanhuan had said it, he realized that it really was similar. "It's nothing to make a fuss about. I bet his dad was too corrupt and other people cursed it there." Fatty Yu looked somewhat disdainfully at Xuanhuan. "What?" asked Xuanhuan, confused. "Wow, have you not heard about the curse before? They curse you to have a son with a penis growing on his head." "Oh, brother really is wise," Xuanhuan said admiringly. When the shopkeeper saw everyone jeer and taunt this person, he turned pale with fright and quickly cast a meaningful look at Shifeng. Unfortunately, Shifeng, who had a slight relationship with the shopkeeper, didn't pay him any attention and acted as if he had never met him. That long-eyebrowed man's face became cold immediately, and he icily looked at Fatty Yu. "Damn fat-ass pig, are you guys looking to die?" Fatty Yu shook his head. "Brother, seeing your bitter face, I can easily tell that someone close to you must have died. Was it your father? Your mother? Either way, now is not the time to eat and drink here." "Right, that's too unfilial. Such a son should be directly thrown into the streets." "Shh, stop. Don't you see him trembling? If we keep talking, he might go crazy and start foaming at the mouth. Then how will we be able to drink and enjoy ourselves?" The power of teamwork was definitely amazing. Everyone heard Fatty Yu and Xuanhuan's taunts, so they all considered their own ridicule. They definitely had to at least contribute their own jokes at such an opportunity. "Die." With a short cry, a long whip appeared in that person's hand. The wind howled with biting cold killing intent. As it crashed down upon them, everyone realized that the whip had them all in range. Shifeng had long since been prepared for this. With just a touch on his belt, a blade slashed out. The long blade and the flexible whip collided, emitting an explosive sound. Shifeng felt an urge. A huge power hit him, and was sent flying into the roof, shaking the entire restaurant. His face turned slightly red due to an internal injury, a sign that his blood and ki were about to overflow out of his control. He had shockingly been beaten in just one attack. "Go die, you urchins." After that first attack, his whip became like a poisonous dragon, immediately turning rigid and becoming like a sword stabbing towards Shifeng's heart. This shocked everyone. They hadn't expected this person to be so ruthless. He was clearly intent on killing Shifeng. That whip was too fast, and Shifeng was unable to dodge it. Just when he thought he was about to die, A large hand tightly grabbed on the whip. It was now completely unable to move. "Brother Long!" Everyone cried out as Long Chen appeared beside Shifeng. He appeared like a king amongst men as he coldly looked at that man. "It's you?" That man couldn't help being startled when he saw it was Long Chen. "Good. You still remember me." A cold smile appeared on Long Chen's face. He suddenly tugged on the whip, and the man was startled to feel a huge force involuntarily pull him flying towards Long Chen. He was slightly startled, never expecting Long Chen's strength to be so great. Even a first heaven stage of blood condensation expert like him couldn't resist. He sneered, and borrowing the force from being pulled over by Long Chen, he raised his leg and aimed it at Long Chen's stomach. His reactions were so quick that they dazzled and confused others. This person was obviously a true expert. Seeing him rushing over, Long Chen also sit down a kick. Its speed wasn't that great, but it was perfectly timed such that it viciously landed on that person's crotch right before his attack reached Long Chen's stomach. The sound of something exploding caused everyone else's groins to turn cold. Goosebumps arose all along their backs. Ah! A miserable scream resounded out through the restaurant. Everyone who heard that cry had their hair stand on end. But even such a blood-curdling cry was unable to relieve his pain. He rolled on the ground fiercely, his face contorted in pain, screaming. Due to these intense movements, his hat suddenly fell off, and Fatty Yu and the others' expressions all changed. Someone from the Grand Xia Empire? Or Xia? When the hat came off, it revealed an extremely ancient hair bun, like a stretched-out thumb. It was no wonder his hat was so strange. That hair bun was a mark of the Grand Xia. Only nobles with high status would style their hair like that. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, realizing that they had caused a huge disaster here. The Grand Xia and the Phoenix Cry had a good relationship, and this kind of disaster could even influence the relations between the two empires. The consequence would be severe. Looking at the rolling man, the suppressed anger inside Long Chen loosened slightly. He handed the whip to Wild and said, "He hit you. You can hit him back now." "Hit someone? I can't." Wild hesitated. Long Chen's face darkened. "You won't listen to me?" I'll do it." Seeing Long Chen's face darken, Wild quickly became frightened. He had only ever known how it felt to be beaten. This would be the first time he hit back. He held the whip in his hand for a long moment of hesitation, not daring to strike. "Do it!" shouted Long Chen. He had to push Wild to take this step. Otherwise, he would only end up being bullied for the rest of his life. Okay. Wild took a deep breath and used the whip to attack him. "Hey!" But that scream wasn't from the man with the long eyebrows. It had come from the person closest to Wild. "Brother Wild, you have to have better aim." That person had to suppress his tears as he rubbed his thigh that Wild had hit painfully. Wild's face reddened. He had never used a whip. It was so light that he couldn't even use any real force. Missing the person right in front of him, he ended up hitting his neighbor. Long Chen sighed. This child needed to temper himself. "Continue." When Long Chen shouted this, everyone immediately ran at least 10 meters away. Only at that distance did they feel safer. Crack! This time, Wild had picked up a bit about how to use a whip, but he had still ended up missing his target by almost 3 meters. The man with the long eyebrows was still tightly holding his groin, his face twisted in pain. He didn't pay any attention to Wild's weak attacks. "Brother Long, this time I'll definitely get it right." Seeing how unsightly Long Chen's face had become, Wild hastily reassured him and prepared to lash the whip again. Just at this time, a figure appeared behind everyone. This person was in his 30s and had an exceptionally long blade scar on his face that made him appear extremely fierce. "Stay your hand." That man sternly shouted in fury when he saw the man lying on the floor with Wild holding a whip in his raised hand. Just because you tell us to stop, we're supposed to stop. Hit him, ordered Long Chen coldly. Hearing Long Chen, Wild no longer hesitated and sent another lash towards the man. You're asking for it. Seeing Wild actually attack, he furiously stepped forward, his figure turning into a violent tempest that charged towards Wild. Get lost. Long Chen also stepped forward, getting between them and punching out. Seeing Long Chen come forward to block him, he frowned and also sent out a punch. Boom! The air exploded when the two fists met. But what shocked the scarred man was that his fist was actually completely unable to force back this frail and scholarly-looking young man. At this time, Wild's lash finally landed. Originally, he had been aiming for the man's buttocks, but due to his poor aim, it had actually landed on his face. Furthermore, it ended up landing perfectly on the nose. Although Wild didn't know how to use a whip, he had still had quite a bit of physical strength. The man's nose immediately broke and blood spurted out. Seeing this, the scarred man turned ashen with anger. With a draconian shout, he unleashed his full power to force back Long Chen. Long Chen saw the situation and decided not to wait any longer. The Feng Fu star on the bottom of his left foot shook, and a terrifying spiritual energy flooded out. He now used his full strength. The two of their fists offset each other, but the powerful energy that was something the tiles on the floor were unable to bear, and a spiderweb cracks spread out. The scarred man's expression changed when he found out that Long Chen could still continue to block him when he used all his strength. Killing intent exploded out of him. His aura erupted from his body, and a faint blood-colored ki could even be seen filling the air. His frightening energy caused even the atmosphere to become heavy. The others had all had some trouble breathing. Mid-blood condensation realm? Everyone here was astonished, as that level of blood ki was something that only mid-blood condensation experts were capable of. Each major level of martial cultivation had 9 minor levels that were split from the 1st heaven stage to the 9th heaven stage. 1st to 3rd heaven stages were early stage, 4th to 6th were mid stage, and 7th to 9th were late stage. As for the scarred man in front of them, now that all his strength had exploded out, everyone realized that he was a shocking mid-blood condensation expert. Boom! Long Chen felt his blood and ki billow. As he was forced back over 3 meters, his stomach started to ache. He had finally discovered his limit. This person in front of him was someone he was currently not a match for. Fear and shock filled him inside. As for that scarred man, he sent a fist flying towards Long Chen without hesitation. You would dare attack my brother Long? A thunderous roar shook everyone's ears suddenly, and a fist covered in blood-colored light smashed towards the scarred man with an immense power. Chapter 24. End.